Melania Trump fainted live on television after Jasmine Crockett calmly revealed a confidential file. What unfolded next became one of the quietest yet most powerful moments in modern political history. Even before the broadcast began, you could sense the pressure. The atmosphere behind the scenes was thick, producers whispering directions, makeup artists making last-minute fixes, and interns barely breathing. The segment was set to air live at exactly 8 p.m. from a sleek downtown studio in Dallas, Texas. By 7:45, every single audience seat was filled. Microphones had been double-checked. On the right side of the curved panel table sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She appeared calm, collected. Her navy blazer had crisp white trim, and her hands rested neatly in front of her. She was not smiling, not exactly, just the faintest curve of her lips, like someone who knew precisely what she came to do. Opposite her sat Melania Trump in a white dress, pearl earrings glinting under the lights. Her posture was impeccable, her expression unreadable. She adjusted a sleeve, took a slow sip of water, and made no sound doing it. If she felt any nerves, they were hidden deep. Between them sat Terrence Van, the host, a seasoned anchor with 3 decades of live broadcast experience. Even he looked more tense than usual. He glanced down at his notes, cleared his throat, and signaled for quiet. 30 seconds, called a producer from behind the camera. But this night was not notable just because of who was on the panel. It was what people suspected might finally surface. For weeks, quiet rumors had spread, screenshots with blurred names, bits of leaked itineraries, vague hints about hotel check-ins. No one had confirmed anything, not officially. Jasmine Crockett had said nothing beforehand. No media teasers, no social posts, not even subtle hints. But to those who understood political strategy, that kind of silence was its own warning sign. She was preparing with care. 10 seconds, phones were already out across the audience. The studio was packed with political insiders, reporters, and influencers with large online followings. The energy buzzed, tight and electric. No one knew what was coming, but nearly everyone sensed it, and sometimes that feeling alone is enough to change everything. The lights came up. Good evening, and welcome to State Line Live, Terrence began. Tonight, we are joined by 2 significant figures to discuss ethics, truth, and the responsibilities of public leadership. He turned to Melania. First Lady Melania Trump, thank you for joining us. She nodded slightly. Her voice was steady. Thank you for having me. Then he addressed the other guest, and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Thank you for being here. Jasmine did not nod. She looked straight into the camera. It is necessary. Terrence let out a polite laugh, giving himself a moment to shift gears. Let us begin with trust, public trust in leadership. What breaks it, and what can repair it? Melania spoke first. Her tone was calm and controlled. She spoke about media bias, the role of leadership, and how Americans need to relearn critical thinking. Her comments felt scripted, maybe even rehearsed, but they were effective. Then Jasmine responded. People are exhausted by performance, she said. They are not asking for rehearsed responses. They want proof. They want facts. Melania blinked once, just once, but the close-up camera caught it. Terrence shifted slightly in his chair. Congresswoman, are you suggesting that someone at this table is presenting a constructed image? I am saying, Jasmine replied, that in powerful circles, image is used like currency, and some people have been spending it for years while hiding their truth. The room froze. No coughing, no shifting in seats, just intense silence. Melania straightened in her chair. If that was aimed at me, I hope you are ready to stand behind it. Jasmine leaned back just a bit. The move was subtle, but it radiated control. I am ready. The evidence had not surfaced yet, but what was coming next would bring the entire nation to a halt. The camera panned to a wide shot. 3 people, 1 table. 2 very different worlds clashing on live television. In the center sat a host, already questioning his choice of tie. Let us keep this productive, Terrence said, forcing a smile that did not reach his eyes. Melania, do you believe that individuals in influential, unelected roles should disclose personal relationships that could impact public opinion? Melania paused. Her eyes narrowed for a moment. I believe privacy is a fundamental right, she said, especially for those constantly scrutinized, judged, and pulled apart in the media. Everyone deserves at least that. Jasmine did not flinch. She tilted her head slightly. Privacy is essential, but not when it erodes the public's trust. Melania turned toward her. You are suggesting something without saying it. Why not just be direct? I am not avoiding anything, Jasmine answered. Her tone was sharp and calm. I am giving you a chance to own your story before I have to take control of it. The audience let out a soft gasp. A quiet sound, yet somehow louder than any shout. Melania briefly looked toward someone off camera, likely a producer. Her face flickered with doubt, so subtle that most viewers might have missed it. But online, people were already preparing to pause and replay that exact frame. Terrence shifted the cards in his hand. He was trying to keep the conversation from unraveling. Let us move through this one step at a time. Congresswoman Crockett, you have made it clear you believe there is a deeper concern here. For our viewers, could you explain what exactly that is? Jasmine leaned forward. Her tone stayed calm, her body language steady, but her gaze had a sharpness that made people sit up straighter. People have a right to know, she said, when someone involved in shaping national policy, someone who has stood beside power, has not been honest about who they have built ties with personally or politically. Melania's lips pulled into a thin line. Her voice was low and deliberate. You are treading into dangerous territory. I am walking in the truth, Jasmine replied. And the trail is marked with timestamps. That statement did not just land it, stuck. Terrence attempted to pivot. Let us step back a little, he offered. With social media in the mix, controlling public narratives is harder than ever, but nobody was listening to him now. The focus was completely on the silent tension between two women who had mastered how to say everything without spelling it out. Melania slowly placed both palms on the table. This conversation was supposed to focus on ideas, but it is clearly becoming personal, she said. And frankly, that says a lot about your character, Congresswoman, Jasmine answered without pause. You are right. It is personal, but not for me. It is personal for those who were misled, for the people who put their faith in a carefully crafted image, one that was protected and presented as truth. The atmosphere dropped several degrees. Terrence looked toward the teleprompter, possibly hoping it would steer the segment back to safety. But there was no script to rely on now. Not when Jasmine opened her folder, not when she gently placed her hand on the top page and said, should I begin with the March 11th visit to Zurich or the April 6th day in Marbella? Melania stayed quiet. The audience was completely still. Terrence dropped his pen. Jasmine went on, her voice still steady. Both dates show up on international customs records. Both involve a private jet registered to a shell company linked to someone very close to you. Neither trip was mentioned in any official calendar or press statement. That is false, Melania replied, but her voice shook slightly and the tremble did not go unnoticed. I have documentation, Melania, the kind you hoped would never see daylight. For the first time during the show, Melania looked away, not at Jasmine, not at the audience. She turned toward the control room. A producer whispered through a headset, but no one was cutting to commercial, and Jasmine was nowhere near done with her folder. There was something different in her tone. She was not angry, she was not defensive, she was certain. The kind of certainty that is often mistaken for gentleness, until it becomes clear, it comes from someone who already knows the outcome. Melania tried to counter. This is a smear campaign, she said, a stunt from someone who thrives on attention and understands how scandal sells. Terrence looked ready to step in again, but Jasmine raised her hand not high, just enough to signal she was not finished. Took out the first page, a printed document with faded yellow highlights. This is a Swiss customs flight log, she said. March 11th, Zurich International Airport, Gulfstream G500. Tail number N519JR. The passenger list shows initials that align with your legal name. She paused. There is a second name listed, though it is under a false identity. But both passengers checked into the Grand Hotel that evening. Jasmine looked up. The same suite you stayed in when you gave the Women's Summit keynote in 2019. Only this time, the context was different. Melania's jaw tensed. You are drawing conclusions. Initials do not prove identity. That is why I also have hotel surveillance footage, Jasmine said, tapping the folder, and a sworn statement from a front desk employee. He did not know who you were at first, but he remembered the tip. 2,000 euros in cash. Delivered in an envelope. Melania stared straight ahead. Her eyes did not blink. You are violating my rights, she said. Jasmine's expression stayed firm. Public responsibility does not stop at the edge of private wrongdoing, especially when the person benefiting from secrecy is addressing the nation with a polished smile. Terrence looked like he was gripping the table beneath him. Congresswoman, I have to ask. Why now? Why tonight? Jasmine answered, her voice lowered, not with hesitation, but purpose. Because there has been a cost, she said. A cost for every girl taught to stay quiet when someone in power crosses a line. For every woman told her truth is too disruptive to someone else's reputation. She paused. I waited 6 months, hoping someone else would speak up. No one did. The room was silent. Even the camera crew had gone still, as if afraid to interrupt the weight of that moment. Jasmine picked up another document. April 6th, Marbella, same jet. Different guest, same level of secrecy. No media coverage, no official record, no explanation. Until now. Melania finally snapped. Do you even realize what you are doing? She said. You are tearing down a family. You are chasing headlines. You are ruining lives over rumors and assumptions. Jasmine did not waver. If you think this is all guesswork, then take legal action. Everything in this folder has been verified. She paused again. You are not concerned about what I am saying. You are afraid people might believe it. And across the country, people were already watching. Screens lit up. Texts were sent. Group chats lit on fire. Those who tuned in, expecting a routine political exchange, had found something else entirely. Viewers were now witnessing something rare, a reckoning happening in real time. No dramatic cutaways, no staged reactions. Just raw, undeniable truth, presented with quiet precision. Terrence leaned forward, his voice more careful now. Congresswoman Crockett, are you claiming that the First Lady engaged in multiple undisclosed relationships while her husband was in office? Jasmine shook her head. No. What I am saying is that she had private interactions with powerful international figures, the same individuals who later attempted to buy into U.S. infrastructure projects. And I am saying those meetings were kept hidden in purpose, because transparency would have weakened their influence. Melania stood up abruptly. You will regret this. Jasmine stayed seated. I already regret staying silent. That is why I am here now. For a brief moment, it looked like Melania might leave, but she did not. She just wavered slightly. She reached behind her for the chair, fingers tightening around the metal. Terrence broke the silence. Are you all right? Melania opened her mouth to reply. No words came out. What happened next stunned the entire nation. Shoes shifted against the floor as she reached again for the chair. Her knuckles turned pale against the chrome edge. Everyone in the room froze. No one moved. Not Terrence, not the crew, not even Jasmine. It was as if the tension had solidified in the air, and no one dared break it. Melania, Terrence asked again, his voice uncertain now. She tried again to speak, but still no sound. Then her balance gave way. It was not sudden or loud at first. Her left foot simply failed to land. Then her shoulder slumped. She pitched forward. Her hand missed the chair. Completely, her lapel microphone crackled as she lost balance. A voice from backstage called out, but it was already too late. A crew member rushed forward just as her body folded sideways. He caught her elbow to soften the fall, but her knees hit the floor. Her head dropped. The audience gasped. Cut the feed. Cut the feed. Someone shouted from the control booth. But the stream stayed live to millions watching. Terrence stood, visibly rattled. We need a medic now. Jasmine did not move. She looked frozen like the rest, but not in shock. In restraint. This was not her moment to speak. Not now. Emergency responders emerged from backstage. They had apparently been brought in as a safety measure, not expecting this. Melania was still breathing, but her skin had turned pale. Her eyes darted around, unfocused, as if the room was tilting. They gently lifted her onto a stretcher. Quiet voices filled the air. Someone nearby began crying. The studio had stopped being a stage. It had become something much more human. She fainted. One paramedic said, possible vasovagal response. We will take her for a full scan. No one questioned it, but everyone understood. That fall was not just physical, it was the pressure. The unraveling of a long-maintained image. A collapse of control. As they wheeled her out, another producer leaned in close to Terrence and whispered something. His shoulders dropped. He turned to the camera, unsure if it was still broadcasting. We are going to take a short break, he said. The screen faded to black. But the break came too late. The internet already had it. Viewers had recorded the fall from their phones. Clips began spreading immediately. TikToks were being created before her stretcher even left the building. At home, journalists replayed the live streams, screen recording on their laptops. Within minutes, chaos. Melanian collapse was trending #1 in the United States within 7 minutes. By 10 minutes, it had gone global. News anchors rewrote their nightly scripts on the fly. TV panelists whispered into their earpieces, trying to confirm what had just happened. The studio buzzed with disbeliefs, some people frantic, others stunned. Terrence returned to the stage. Jasmine was still seated. She had not moved. Her folder was closed. She was not smiling, just watching. Congresswoman Terrence said gently, we will resume soon. You do not have to stay if you feel the situation has changed. Jasmine looked at him, calm but clear. I did not want this to happen, but I was not the one keeping secrets. He nodded. No reply. Outside, ambulance lights flickered across the glass. Inside, the silence was heavy, not tense, just real. Melania was no longer in the building. Her team had already begun writing a statement. They called it a brief health scare brought on by a demanding travel schedule. But the truth was already out. The narrative had shifted. Jasmine knew it. And she also knew this was only the beginning. The feed had only been offline for 8 minutes when the first clip hit Twitter. Shot by someone in the second row. It captured the exact moment Melania's legs gave out and her hand missed the chair. That video reached 1.2 million views in its first hour. 10 minutes later, a slowed-down TikTok version showed her expression just before Jasmine mentioned Zurich. That post crossed 4 million views before the hour ended. CNN played the footage repeatedly. The headline in red, breaking, Melania Trump collapses live on air. Over on MSNBC, 3 analysts were pulled in with barely time for water before being asked to explain what had just happened. No one had solid answers, just theories, questions, and uneasy expressions. YouTube creators were already releasing frame by frame Breakdowns of Jasmine's evidence. Reddit threads analyzed every word she said. By midnight, hashtag Crockett exposes was trending beside hashtag MELANIA collapse. In the top 5 hashtags, worldwide. What stood out most? Jasmine Crockett had not said anything since Melania left the stage. No press release, no social post, not even a retweet. That silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. People noticed. People respected it. She is not chasing drama. That is how you know this is real. Someone tweeted. It was shared over 300,000 times. Another user posted. She gave Melania a choice. Melania assumed she would not go there. She was wrong. Jasmine's phone buzzed non-stop. Staff messages, missed calls, 2 voicemails from New York press numbers. She ignored them all. She was in the backseat of a car now, heading to her hotel. Her chief of staff, Kian Pollard, sat beside her, flipping through headlines. You broke the internet, Kian said, eyes still on his screen. Even TMZ picked it up. He kept scrolling. They are calling it the coldest takedown in political TV history. No yelling, no drama, just facts. Jasmine looked out the window. And now, he added, flipping to another article, they are all begging for a comment. Every outlet, even Fox, has someone on air saying the whole thing was staged. She fainted live. Kian said, you cannot fake legs giving out like that. They do not care. Jasmine murmured, they are running with it anyway. A quiet pause hung between them. Not awkward, just full. She will come after us, Jasmine said softly. Either her or someone close to her. Kian sighed and finally lowered his phone. Do you still believe you did the right thing? Jasmine answered without pause. I know I did. Meanwhile, across living rooms nationwide, people were glued to replays. Eyes locked, minds racing. It was not just the collapse, it was everything around it. Melania's expression right before it happened, Jasmine's steady tone, the proof in that folder, and the unshakable feeling that something had shifted. The truth was no longer whispered behind closed doors. It was laid out in the open under studio lights. Some viewers called it political theater. Others called it a necessary reckoning. But no one could deny that it was real. That same night, Jasmine's name was searched over 8 million times on Google. Instagram, lit up with still shots Melania before and after the folder reveal. TikTok creators made sync videos using Jasmine's line, I am walking the truth, and it is paved with timestamps. One post cut through more than any other. A black screen with white text. She did not raise her voice. She raised the bar. It hit 2 million likes by sunrise. Still, not everyone supported her. A former Trump staffer tweeted, this is not courage. It is defamation wrapped in righteousness. Others accused her of politics as performance. But for every critic, there were 5 supporters praising her focus, her control, her courage. Jasmine said nothing in return. Not yet. She was waiting for the facts to speak louder than she ever could, and they were about to, because someone unexpected was ready to step forward. And what they revealed would send a wave through every newsroom in the country. By the next morning, the first emails had already leaked. It began with one message, sent from an encrypted address and forwarded to an independent journalist in Phoenix. The subject line read, Zurich, Marbella, she was not alone. Attached were 2 PDFs. Each contained email threads dating from 2021 to early 2023. The sender stayed anonymous, but the details were hard to ignore. Timestamps, names, schedules, mentions of security, coordination with European contacts. One line stood out in bold text. Keep her name off the manifest this time. Use Marbella protocol. By 9 a.m., those emails had reached Politico, then CNN, then Reuters. Legal teams kicked into high gear. PR experts scrambled by noon. Melania's representatives released a statement. Mrs. Trump experienced a minor health incident during a demanding panel appearance. She is grateful for the support and plans to resume public activity soon. Any accusations made are false and will be addressed through legal channels. But their timing was off. 15 minutes later, another piece surfaced. This time, it was video. Grainy footage from a hotel elevator in Zurich. It showed 2 people entering, one in a white coat, the other in a baseball cap and sunglasses. Their faces were hard to see, but the date and time matched the customs records Jasmine had mentioned, and the woman in white, her stride, her bag, her shoes, was unmistakable. Just like in the photos seen on dozens of wire services, Melania, the man wearing the cap, remained unidentified. But that did not stop the speculation. Some of the guesses were gaining traction. By 11 a.m., Melania had already canceled a scheduled appearance in Palm Springs at 1:12 p.m. One of her longtime friends quietly deactivated her Twitter account. By 2 p.m., whispers started leaking. From inside Mar-a-Lago, Melania had been advised to stay out of the spotlight, avoid the media, regroup. The collapse had gone far beyond a health scare. It was now a crisis of reputation. Meanwhile, in a quiet office in Dallas, Jasmine sat alone. No press team, no advisors, just her and her laptop, reviewing the documents one more time. her chief of staff, Kian, stepped in with an update. One of your former aides just gave a background statement. He said, she wants to go public. Said she was in Marbella with them, and booked a hotel room herself. Jasmine did not react. She opened a new browser tab. Does she have proof? A receipt from the hotel, Kian answered. Her name is on it. Jasmine let out a slow breath. Not relief, just readiness. Set up a private statement, she said. No media, just audio. Timestamp everything. What if there is legal pushback? She will not say anything that cannot be confirmed. We are not targeting personalities. We are showing a pattern. It had never been about private affairs, not for Jasmine. It was about the relationships behind those meetings, the trail of influence, the flow of privileged information, the names that kept appearing, and the strange policy shifts that seemed to follow. The American public was not just watching a scandal unfold. They were watching a map of influence being drawn out in real time. News anchors began using new terms. International leverage, foreign compromise, conflict of interest. For the first time in years, Melania Trump was not being discussed as a fashion figure or spouse. She was being discussed in terms of political power. As for Jasmine, she still had not given a single interview. That silence was now part of the message. Controlled, intentional, disruptive in its own right. But not everyone saw it that way. That evening, Jasmine's security consultant flagged an incoming email. A cease and desist letter. Melania's attorneys were threatening legal action. Accusations included character defamation, privacy invasion, and emotional harm. Jasmine read the letter briefly, then deleted it. Do I need to worry? Kian asked. She shook her head. People do not sue over lies. They sue when you are telling too much truth. Kian nodded, then paused. This is not over. You know that, right? It does not need to be over, she said. It just needs to stay honest. But Jasmine did not have time to plan her next move. Because someone on Melania's team had finally reached their breaking point. The subpoena arrived quietly. A plain envelope, hand-delivered to Jasmine's district office. The kind of document that would shake most politicians. But Jasmine simply held it for a second, scanned the return address, and said, there it is. Kian stared at her like she had lost it. You are being summoned to testify. In D.C. Jasmine, that is serious. I know, she said, slipping the envelope into her bag. That is why I am not avoiding it. 2 days later, Jasmine sat before a congressional subcommittee. A row of cameras lined the back wall, microphones aimed at her like traps. Across the desk, familiar faces. Some Republican members showed open hostility. They had never liked her, even before this. Others wore neutrality like a mask. But their eyes were calculating. Jasmine adjusted her mic. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, representing Texas's 30th District. The chairperson opened the hearing. Congresswoman, we are not here to debate headlines. We are here to understand the scope of your actions and their national implications. Do you understand? Jasmine leaned forward. Her voice was clear. I do. The questions came fast. One member asked if she had ties to foreign intelligence. Another accused her of using personal details to boost her profile. She listened. Let them finish. Then she responded as she always did without backing down. I held on to this information for months, she said. Not because it was unimportant, but because I knew exactly what would happen the moment I spoke up. I would be called emotional, vindictive, self-serving. So I waited until every piece could be verified. The room went still. I did not release this to humiliate anyone. I released it because public figures do more than represent themselves. They shape influence. And when that influence is built behind closed doors, people deserve transparency. Few heads around the table nodded small, subtle signs of respect, even if no one said it out loud. The true shift happened later that same day. Jasmine agreed to her first on-camera interview since the panel had aired on a quiet Sunday night. Just after 6 p.m., the network barely promoted it. They did not need to. Word had already spread. The setup was simple. 2 chairs, soft lighting. Opposite Jasmine sat veteran journalist Darlene Rowe. No theatrics, just questions. I have to ask. Darlene began. Did you know it would go that far? That she would collapse? Jasmine answered right away. No, I expected her to deny it. I expected spin. I did not expect her body to say what her words would not. Did you feel any regret afterward? Jasmine took a breath. Yes, not for what I revealed, but for how much silence people are willing to live with just to avoid discomfort. That is what stayed with me. Darlene let the moment linger before asking her next question. Some people are saying this marked the end of civility in politics. That you crossed a line. Jasmine gave a small smile. You mean the line between what we all know and what we are allowed to say out loud? She looked straight into the lens. I think we crossed that line a long time ago. I am just the one who showed the receipt. That clip exploded online before midnight. Not because it was flashy, not because it was dramatic, but because her voice held something people had not heard in a while. Certainty. The kind of conviction that makes time stop backstage. Kian met her with a simple nod. You just changed the tone of the entire conversation. They will twist it, he added. They always do. But they are not the only ones paying attention. What Jasmine did not know yet was that someone else had been watching that interview in a quiet townhouse in Alexandria, Virginia. A former Trump aide, someone who had signed 3 separate NDAs, was tuned in. She had not spoken to the press. Not yet. But watching Jasmine stirred something in her. Because sometimes courage does not roar. Sometimes it is the voice that stays steady when everyone expects it to break, and what that aide did next would confirm everything Jasmine had hinted at. And the consequences would be bigger than anyone imagined. Her name was Colette Baines, 40-2. Former executive liaison during the final years of the Trump administration. She was primarily tasked with organizing events involving foreign guests and unofficial visits. There is even a photo of her 3 steps behind Melania at a gala in Brussels. Back then, she was invisible, quiet, loyal. Now, she sat in a private office, a microphone clipped to her lapel, a camera facing her directly. She was being interviewed by a whistleblower journalist out of St. Louis. I do not want money, she said plainly. I want space, and I want the truth told exactly how it happened. She took a sip of water, exhaled. She lied often about where she was, about who she met. It was not random, it was planned. I booked her travel under fake company names. I signed NDAs for meetings that were never meant to be public. Why now? The interviewer asked. Because Jasmine Crockett reminded me of what silence really costs. And with that, everything shifted again. The interview was released in segments. 48 hours later, the second part dropped online. In it, Colette shared screenshots of internal messages, reservations made using aliases, and a driver's statement from Spain. The names were blurred, but the meaning was not. One part of the interview showed Colette being asked directly, was Melania ever connected to foreign investors looking to gain influence in the U.S.? Her response was measured. Yes, and not just casually. That single sentence echoed louder than any document Jasmine had ever presented. It came from someone on the inside, someone who had stayed quiet until the weight of truth became too heavy. Melania's legal team hit back quickly. They released a public statement, labeling Colette a bitter ex-staffer with a personal grudge, but it did not land. The public was not buying it. Colette did not appear angry or vengeful. She looked worn down and honest. That same week, a second former staffer came forward to the Oregon Tribune off the record. She backed up a similar timeline involving a 2022 trip to Vienna. That trip had not even been part of Jasmine's original report, until now. Suddenly, the news cycle erupted again. Talk show hosts invited ethics experts to explain what it meant. Financial reporters tracked the shell companies mentioned in the leaks. One had placed a multi-million-dollar bid to modernize federal systems in 2021. It only failed after a congressional review. The puzzle pieces were forming a new image, one not just of personal scandal, but of influence for sale. Through it all, Jasmine stayed quiet. No press appearances. No social media posts. She let the facts carry the story. This was never about attacking Melania. It was about lifting the veil on a system that had always relied on silence. Still, there were defenders. One cable anchor insisted, she's being punished for having class and choosing privacy. Another said, this is not journalism, it's revenge. But those defenses lost ground fast. Every denial was met with a new document, a new source, or another inconsistency in the timeline. Melania disappeared from the spotlight. She canceled 3 more appearances. Reporters waited outside her Florida estate. No photos, no statements, just a closed gate. Even among conservative circles, the mood began to shift. Influencers who once praised her grace started backing away. Some called her a distraction. Others said plainly, she is a liability now. Meanwhile, Jasmine returned to her everyday work. She attended a local school board hearing. She visited a food pantry. The same people who once gave her polite nods now reached out to shake her hand. Outside a library in Mesquite, a woman told her, you said what had to be said, and you didn't scream to do it. That's why it stayed with us. Later that afternoon, Kian handed her a printed email. Another whistleblower had come forward, this time from a Belgian security firm. More documents, more verification. Jasmine glanced at the folder. She built everything on image, she said quietly, and it broke apart in one night. While the public worked through what it all meant, something else began to take shape. Jasmine Crockett was becoming something more than a politician, not a celebrity, a symbol of something different. She did not hire a publicist. She did not announce a memoir or go on talk shows. Instead, she visited small towns, places political campaigns usually skip. Shreveport, Louisiana, Dalton, Georgia, Branson, Missouri. At one event in a school gym filled with folding chairs and families, an older man stood during the Q&A. I've voted Republican my whole life, he said. But you looked that woman in the eye and told the truth. I might not agree with all your policies, but that took courage. The applause was not loud. It was steady, and it was sincere. After the event, Jasmine turned to Keon. "This is bigger than Melania now." "It always was," he replied. The backlash was still there. Some cable hosts still called her reckless, dangerous, worse. But their voices were fading, because Jasmine kept showing up without a spotlight. At a community meeting in Topeka, Kansas, she met a group of single moms running a childcare network they built themselves. No funding, no recognition, just effort. They did not ask about Zurich, or Marbella, or Colette. They asked, "How do we keep people like you from being silenced?" Jasmine gave them the only honest answer she could. Keep talking about more than the scandal. Keep pushing for change. That's how we turn this from a moment into momentum. Her approval ratings began rising, first in her own district. Then, across state lines, young voters especially started naming her as the one who did not back down. College panels invited her to speak. Law students requested copies of her notes. Podcasts replayed her lines. One quote from her original interview with Darlene Rowe became iconic. "You do not break systems by yelling at them. You break them by showing people how they work." That line was painted on a building in Fresno. Jasmine never found out who did it. It just showed up. Inside political circles, reactions varied. Some Democrats celebrated her as a new voice for accountability. Others hesitated, unsure if the momentum would last. Republicans prepared attack ads, trying to connect her to anything that would distract from the real issue. But every time the story drifted, someone brought it back. She never flinched. She brought facts. She kept calm, and she stayed. At a press conference in Philadelphia, a local journalist asked, "Do you see yourself as the leader of a new political movement?" Jasmine paused. "I do not know what to call it, but I'm tired of watching people pay the price for telling the truth. If that's a movement, then so be it." The quote ran on front pages in over 30 outlets. Back in Dallas, Jasmine spent an afternoon at the clinic where she used to volunteer. A nurse pulled her aside. "That waiting room's full of people who've never even watched C-SPAN, but they watched you." Jasmine smiled. "Let's just make sure they get seen today." But the final statement, the one that brought it all together, was still coming, and it would not be from a press stage. There were no speeches, no lighting, no plan. But Jasmine had traveled to Fort Worth for a small meeting with volunteers and high school students, just around folding chairs, fluorescent lights, cold coffee in the back. Midway through, a teenager, probably 17, maybe younger, raised her hand. She did not ask about Melania. She did not ask about any scandal. She asked, "How do you keep going when everyone tries to tear you down?" Jasmine looked at her for a moment, then asked, "Can someone record this?" They propped a phone on a stack of books. No audience, just the room. Jasmine leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Voice soft, but sure. "I didn't get into politics to go toe-to-toe in the spotlight. I wanted to fight for schools, for housing, for the people who never get in the rooms where choices are made. But once you're in those rooms, you start to see how much of it runs on pretending. Pretending you did not hear what you heard. Pretending the truth will surface eventually." She paused. "Eventually is too late for too many people." The room went still. You could hear a chair creak. No one spoke. "So when people ask how I keep going, it's not because I'm fearless. It's because I'm tired. Tired of watching lies win. Tired of watching truth lose everything." She looked around. "If I'm going to be in the room, I'm not going to whisper. I'm going to speak." Her voice did not rise. It stayed calm. Clear. "I did not call names. I did not hurl insults. I gave the truth and let people choose what to do with it. And yes, there is a cost. You lose friends. You get threats. You hear it all. But I sleep well. I look my mother in the eye. And when I step into rooms like this one, I know I used my voice." She looked back at the girl. "So do not wait for the perfect moment. Speak when it matters. Even if your voice shakes, even if your hands do too. Because someone out there is watching you and thinking, if she can say it, maybe I can too." The clip lasted 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Kean uploaded it from the car. No edits, no polish. He captioned it, "This is what leadership looks like." By the next morning, it had 12 million views. High schools played it at assemblies. Veterans reposted it. Podcasts included it in highlight reels. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true, and because it reminded everyone that leadership is not about position. It is about action. When no one is guiding you. Melania never responded again. No interviews, no appearances. Her attorneys quietly dropped the lawsuit. Months later, a major investigation confirmed what Jasmine had shown shell companies: undisclosed travel and political overlap. Jasmine did not celebrate. She stayed the course. She passed 2 bills aimed at transparency in government travel and lobbying. They were not flashy, but they mattered, and that student from Fort Worth. She wrote Jasmine a letter. Said she applied for a fellowship in Washington. Said she was not afraid anymore because of what one woman said in a room with no script and no spotlight. Speak when it matters, even if your voice shakes. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. If this story moved you, made you question what you were told to stay quiet about. Do not scroll past. Subscribe. Share it. Let someone else feel seen, because stories like this are not about headlines. They are about what comes next.